Welcome back, Fanatics. We got a hot one for you today. Recently, Todd McFarlane posted a video that stirred up the action figure community. In case you missed it, here's the important part.
Just want to let you know we just got word that in 2021, the DC Multiverse 6-inch, 7-inch action figures was the #1 seller in the US and in Canada. We won awards for 2 countries. Just to put it in perspective, that means that we actually sold more of our line of DC Multiverse figures than Star Wars, than Marvel, Spider-Man, and even some of the other superhero lines that are out there by all our major competitors. And it is based on actual sales.
That's right. According to market research company NPD Group, DC Multiverse outsold every other action figure line in 2021. Now, I have some thoughts about that and why it could be, but that's not what's important right now. Did you catch what Todd Balls Bigger Than Boulders McFarlane just did there? He threw a little jab in there. He beat every competitor in sales, but he specifically made sure to call out Star Wars and Marvel. Therefore, he called out Hasbro. So, we here at Fanatic Now felt obligated to hold a very scientific experiment and decide once and for all which is the better action figure, McFarlane DC Multiverse or Hasbro Marvel Legends. This is Fanatic Now. If you're a regular on this channel, A, you're awesome, keep being great, Fanatics. But B, you're probably wondering to yourself right now, isn't this guy just a Marvel Legends fanboy? Or, I bet he's had more beers before filming this episode than the total number of DC Multiverse figures he owns. Well guys, you'd be right. I only owned 4 of these bastards before deciding to do this episode, and well, I kind of forgot to open them. So yeah, I might be a little too biased for this solo. So here's what's gonna happen. We're gonna have a little debate. Brighton owns a bunch more of the McFarlane DC Multiverse figures than I do, and he knows the characters better. So he'll be speaking on their behalf, while I cover what I know best, Marvel Legends. He let me play around with a bunch of his DC figs, so now I'm ready to go. To prevent us from yelling over one another, we're gonna present our quick arguments while the other isn't in the room. We went back and forth just to agree on which 7 categories we would be judging. So, without any further ado, let's begin with Sculpt. Great sculpts are kind of what Todd McFarlane is known for in the action figure community. But we can't forget what Marvel Legends brings to the table, especially in recent years. The MCU figs aren't really my main cup of tea, but their unique one-off designs, accuracy, and texturing have gotten way more impressive. The comic figures are where it gets interesting, because Hasbro does like to repeat body molds when possible, and that limits the extreme details in sculpt. But they really do a decent job of choosing when a standard buck will work and when a 100% new design is needed. Us fans give them a lot of hell for how often they reuse parts. But it isn't usually a problem. We're just so passionate that we never want it to happen. And honestly, Hasbro has given us some amazing, unique sculpts lately. Even the comic and Gamerverse figs are getting justice with extreme details and texturing. Look at the 20th anniversary Cap, the modern Thor, the Miles Morales. Look at the beautiful face work and hair work on Ironheart, or the realism of the latest MCU faces. And they even have Paul Harding doing head sculpts now, which are fantastic. I don't know if they'll win this round, but Hasbro is cranking out some beauts and at a smaller, more difficult 1/12 scale.
When it comes to appearance, McFarlane's DC Multiverse puts their best foot forward. Like, let's just take a look at this Grodd. Look at the stunning detail of the armor, as well as all the fur texture. This cloak on King Shazam looks and feels like real leather, and he has tons of texture across the mold. The problem with McFarlane's DC Multiverse is the ball joints they use on both the hands and the feet, which can sometimes detract from the overall stunning design. Also, the faces are not always the best. I mean, what even happened to this Superman? This focus on design seems to be very important to McFarlane though. Look at this Batman Who Laughs, or this Dr. Fate. The lack of repeat body molds, as well as the addition of extra plastic covering, makes each character feel unique. This seems to be the case across the board, with a few exceptions.
Paint. Marvel Legends has had a tricky history with paint apps. I mean, if we go back to when they first started 20 years ago, we were ecstatic at the detail we were getting. But when we look back at them, a lot of those faces look like... Now, we're getting everything these days, from immaculate beauty makeup to detailed line work to some impressive face scan technology. And throughout the body, we're getting shading and washes and realistic leather that would make any cowboy go. Don't even get me started on how much we've finally started making metal armor to actually look like metal. The problem though is that they just don't always do it. Too often they're still giving us paint like this and this. But at least we're not getting eyes painted where they look like they're always glancing to the side. Ugh, dude, why?
The paint apps can be hit or miss sometimes. Like I was saying earlier, faces are not always the best, unless it's a helmet or a mask or a Joker. Like the red cherry on this Red Hood is immaculate, and the teeth, the coloring and the shading on this Joker are exceptional. The eye paint and face of this King Shazam are horrifying, and not in a good way. Now, paint apps throughout the body are pretty good. Sometimes they're not that exceptional, but sometimes you do get some really good look to it. I mean, we got this really cool neon color on this version of Batman, or some of the shading and wash we get on these Robins. We kind of will get to see a little bit more of this with the upcoming Killer Croc that was just announced in the winter release, because that looks like they're putting a really good foot forward coming into 2022.
Articulation. Okay, here's the first round where I'm walking in like... Marvel Legends has always been known for its articulation. It's the premise that they were built on. And for the price point, they've always delivered. I realize that some of the large figs have limitations, but that's with almost every line. And it will be until we come up with some kind of synthetic body molds. Oh shit, that would be awesome. Sorry, got distracted. I also realized that we've put up with some pretty shitty female articulation. Single joints should be a thing of the past. Until we get those synthetic molds. Luckily, they are being phased out by Hasbro. Most often we get an amazing range of motion, and unlike many from McFarlane's DC Multiverse, we get upper thigh breaks and ankle rockers and butterfly joints on current characters that really need them with large range of motion. Sometimes it's not the most seamless, but it's way better than ball joints and diaper crotch syndrome. I'll give it to the other guys though, with only 22 points of articulation, they do get in most poses that you need. And I even wish Hasbro would kind of think about using toe articulation a little bit more often. Not always, it's not needed, but sometimes that is nice. Because posing is critical to action figures. If they aren't going to look kinetic, just buy a damn statue.
So here is where McFarlane Toys will let you down. The articulation of these guys is sorely lacking. They have visible ball joints at the hands and feet, which are great for motion, but are clunky in design. Sometimes the molding around the joints, much like on this King Shazam, limit the overall range and motion. disappointing because the double ball socket joint allows for a bit more range than the average shoulder joint. They have double hinge elbows and knees that are ratcheted, which means joints are less likely to be loose, as well as having a ball joint in the abdomen allowing for some rocking back and forth, but honestly, not all that much. They also have hinged feet, which allow you to place them in a more movement-based stance. All in all, these guys are not going to get in some crazy poses like some people would want, but they can get into a decent amount. And occasionally, the plastic around the waist that hides the joints kind of gives a diaper look. But I can get this pretty dope running look from the Flash, and that makes me pretty happy. All in all, it seems like McFarlane picks a few different poses and is like, let's make sure the figure can do these, and that ends up being about it. So it gets a very statuesque look, which is really cool, but for an action figure, you kind of lose out a bit.
Scale. Feeling strong about this one too. Scale is important to me. I realize there are plenty of collectors out there cool with having a Lego Batman next to a Funko Pop Batman, next to a 3 3/4 inch Batman, next to a 1/12 scale Batman, a 7-inch Batman, a Hot Toys Batman, a life-size cosplay shit.
And you gotta have a pair of Batgirl panties. I'm just saying, how could you not have that?
I don't know, man. I get it, you're insane. No worries, I am too. I have a shelf just like that right over there. But usually I like to rein it in a bit. I'm a big believer in the 1/12 or 1/6 ratio scale. Base your collections around one or the other depending on what you're going for. Without it, you can't have uniform teams, battles, photography, shelf cohesiveness, and in no way can you have line crossovers. Marvel Legends could very well be the reason that the 6-inch scale is so popular, and you may think that's not fair for comparison, but the early bird gets the worm. 6-inch is the standard, and 7-inch blows hard. No pun intended. Some pun intended. I know 7-inch gives you more room to play, and that has its advantages. Just look at Marvel Selects. But we all got together a long time ago and decided to go with 6-inch. Did y'all miss the meeting?
Alright, so McFarlane's DC Multiverse is 7 inches. I get that this sets some collectors back because it's not on par with the average 6 inches. This really sucks when you want to pair them with your Legends, but it's important to know that this was not a choice made by McFarlane.
We're going to a bigger scale. I know that a couple comments are saying, Todd, why are you changing the scale? Look at, we're in the toy business, and sometimes the retailers ask us to deliver them product, and if we do it, they put our product on the shelf.
So I gotta give them some slack. Honestly, for me, I don't really care. I have separate shelves for each of my different collections, so the height difference really doesn't bother me. Plus, I do get it if you want consistency across the board though. But hell, like most of us tell women, size doesn't matter.
Diversity. This is an easy win for Marvel Legends, right? It may not seem fair that they've been around for 20 years, but they have. We're invested. And even Hasbro has had it for over a decade. We're going on a decade and a half, longer. We're invested, but we don't even have to look at it like that. Let's play fair. Even in the last 2 years, since McFarlane took over DC Multiverse, Hasbro still has made more diverse characters. They're team building and fulfilling character needs from all over the popularity scale. And that's important, because not all of us just worship a single character. We might have gotten a bunch of Spider-Man, Iron Man, and Wolverine figures, but y'all already put out like 70 Batmans. How many do you want? Are y'all dressing up and running into the store like, where are they? Calm down. They just announced a glow-in-the-dark Batman, so your fix is coming. All jokes aside, they're still missing decent renditions of popular characters.
Now, for this portion, it's hard not to point out that McFarlane's DC Multiverse has been around for only 2 years, so I don't really expect a lot of diversity from the line. And being they only have a 3-year contract as of right now, they're trying to push out what's the most popular to get better sales, as they obviously did. I get they're trying to do this to really help that line thrive, but In that same vein, Legends has been giving us multiple different characters from early on in its conception. Like, who even asked for a Toad?
I did.
Plus, if you can make 30 different Batmans, you can give me a bit more variety than just a handful of non-main characters like Azrael and Shriek and Lobo. It does look like we may be leaning towards more variety with the recent release announcements of Man-Bat, Ghostmaker, and Blight. Still way too many Batmans.
I really bonded with me, myself, and I.
Accessories. This is one-sided for me, but I get that not all collectors are going for the same thing. For me, I care about choosing what my action figure is going to be posed doing. Giving me options for alternate heads and swappable hands, that's big. Giving me a bunch of really badass effects, that's huge. Having a trading card included with my 7,000th Batman, doesn't do a whole lot for me, but I don't know, it's pretty cool, I guess. But it's not an accessory, it's a pack-in. It is nothing to improve the figure itself. The greatest pack-in of all time is the BAF. And most Legends Build-A-Figures are incredible. Way better than an out-of-scale Batmobile. Looks more like a Bat skateboard. Now, I will give credit for the stands, especially the flight stands that they sometimes include. I'm cool with making my own. They're cheap and oddly satisfying to build. But if you're not into doing that, that's a good accessory. So I wouldn't mind seeing a little more of those packaged in with Legends.
When you get accessories with McFarlane's DC Multiverse, you get some good looking accessories, like the lightning effects they do for the Flash. But that's only when you get them. Rarely do you get swappable hands or heads, as well as different effects or weapons to enhance the figure. Now, it is awesome to get a stand with every figure, because sometimes posing can be difficult with them. And if you're into a more statuesque look, it gives them a bit more of a professional feel. But I don't feel like that makes them that much better, being that plenty of people pose figures without stands. Plus, unless you're really into action trading cards, then they're kind of a waste and don't really add much in a way of the display. And most of the time, they split between either a comic cover or a figure on the cover of the card. And to me, I'd prefer consistency. They're all figure or all comic.
Price. I'm not going to spend much time on this one. You win. I can give an argument for why you're getting more out of collecting Marvel Legends, and I feel like I already have. But I'll admit, more plastic and more unique molds at 80% the price, it's a good deal. Bravo, you bastards.
Honestly, for what you're getting, these figures are very reasonably priced. Overall, they vary in price depending on what you're getting, but majority of the figures are priced around $20, which is something that is nice, especially with the new hike in price with Legends. Bigger figures run around $30 to $40, but that can be expected because we see that regularly across the board with figures. Now, sometimes you get a little irritating issues like when these Robins were released individually for $20 each, and then a year later sold in a pack for $40. But I mean, that also isn't something too outlandish in the figure world. Just companies trying to make that extra dollar.
Give me your lunch money!
So, there you have it. We conclude our arguments. And the winner, by the score of 4-3, Marvel Legends. But here's a little confession. I came into this thinking it would be a runaway victory, and honestly, it's not. I had them winning by a slim margin, just due to articulation, accessories, scale, and diversity. DC Multiverse, under the leadership of McFarlane, they've really improved. Way better than anything Mattel gave us. And when I reviewed everything that Brighton presented, and that I looked up and figured out by playing with some of his figs, I can see how they could be seen as better based on someone's preferences. If you're more of a DC fan or don't care about team building, if you just want them standing solo in one cool pose, or if you're on a tighter budget, I can see them winning at Sculpt, at Paint, and at price. As a Marvel Legends guy, I'm actually really happy about that. And I hope it lights a fire under Hasbro's ass, because the competition has caught up. So that means that they have to find a way to keep improving without continuous price hikes. That's my take. But I want to hear from you. After you click like and subscribe, jump down in the comments and tell us what you think. Before I go, remember I said that my DC Multiverse figs had just been sitting around unopened? Well, it wasn't just them. I think I have a problem. Will you help me open these? Yeah, let's open them together. Until then, check out some of these other videos. See you soon. Later, Fanatics.